Hello, wild people. Welcome to AK Wild One. I'm struggling here trying to tap into my inner Charles Dickens as I write my PCT story. Let's see. A Tale of Two Trails. It was the best of climbs. It was the worst of climbs. It was a trail of cheers. It was a trail of fears. It was a mountain of hope. It was a valley of despair. It was an epic of scenes tragic. It was an epic of trail magic. It was a place to become enthralled or transform into a Neanderthal. Not quite there. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about some of the downsides, the less than idyllic experiences you might encounter on the PCT. Well, thank you for tuning in. The other day I was excited to receive my official 2024 PCT calendar. The pictures are beautiful. But as I started to look through the calendar, I realized it really doesn't capture everything you need to know about the PCT. You know, hiking the PCT can be a remarkable experience for all those attempting the trek, but it's not all trail magic, cotton candy, and rainbows. First, at the risk of sounding like a pessimist, I want to make sure that I start out by saying that 99% of my PCT experience was positive. I got to share the experience with my family and travel through some stunning and beautiful country. And as an older hiker, I was grateful for the opportunity to recover my health. The purpose of this episode is not to dwell on the negatives you might encounter on the hike, but rather to provide a candid reflection of some of the less than rosy experiences you might have on the trail. My sincere wish is that you don't experience any of the negatives I talk about in this video. Maybe you can learn from my experiences and find ways to avoid some of the situations I mention. So look on the bright side. So number one, solitude is very difficult to achieve on the PCT, especially if you find yourself in a bubble or in the herd. There's nothing wrong with lots of people on the trail, but sometimes you just want to be a bit at peace and to break away from the thundering herd. I'm a quiet person, so I'd rather meet one person on the trail that I connect with and talk to for about 15 minutes or so than I would run into 30 people who just rush by. It's one of the PCT's great ironies that it can sometimes be hard to find solitude, to be able to get away from people, especially during the summer months when you also run into weekend hikers. Okay, downside number two. It can be hard to escape city noise, especially in Southern California. You're never really too far, relatively speaking, from the noise surrounding big city airports in San Diego and Los Angeles. And I was kind of surprised by the constant sound of jets, military jets, city and road noise along the way. That diminished my outdoor experience. I always felt like there was a safety net under me, with the exception of some Sierra sections and most of the sections in Washington. Okay, downside number three. Some backpacking tent sites can be nasty places. Be really careful picking up rocks in some campgrounds. I remember an English lady at a Washington campsite who was looking for rocks to stake down her tent. And as soon as she lifted one up, she shrieked, "Somebody shat under that rock!" You'll just have to take my word on this. I've even seen feces along the trail sometimes mixed with toilet paper. Yuck. Downside number four. Sometimes you'll encounter loud people who are not situationally aware. My thinking is if you decide to camp next to someone who's noisy, then that's on you. However, many times we had our tents set up and hikers would set up their tents within 20 feet of ours and they would stay loud past hiker midnight, which is 9 p.m. I would think that if you see a tent with people sleeping, it would be a good idea to quiet down, but not everyone has manners. Downside number 5. Sometimes you might run into trail gougers in a few of the towns. Sometimes you'll encounter prices that will make you wince. And that's saying something because I come from Alaska where we basically wrote the book on high prices. On the PCT, I've seen a box of macaroni and cheese go for $5. And in California, I couldn't believe the level of taxation. If you rent a room for $100, which is low, count on another 30 to 40% in added fees and taxes. I remember seeing a bill that charged a register fee. That's right, a fee for ringing up my purchase. I remember one store that didn't have prices listed on the items, and when I asked about it, the clerk said the prices were variable due to inflation. So I purposely did an experiment. I bought 5 items in the morning, and then later on in the afternoon, I bought the exact same 5 items. And guess what? By afternoon, I was charged about 10% more. I had the impression I was seeing a little price discrimination tilted against PCT hikers. Downside number 6. You might encounter camp hogs. People who claim an entire campsite for their party before it arrives, which to me is kind of tacky. You could just camp in that location, but you really don't want a campmate who has a grudge against you. So it's probably best to just move on. Downside number 7. I was shocked by the extent of the burn areas, particularly in California and Oregon. I understand the importance of fire in the overall ecological health of an area, but it's still very disheartening. I have nothing to compare it to, but I've done a lot of reading, and a lot of it I guess can be attributed to the forces of climate change. When you look at the PCT calendar, for example, they don't show any pictures of burn areas, although they're going to be an important part of your hike. Okay, downside number 8. Blowdowns. You also don't see any blowdowns in the calendar. In recent burn areas like the 5-mile stretch leading to Rockpile Lake in Oregon, the blowdowns were very intense. This was a place where Flash twisted her ankle. I saw the occasional volunteer with a whipsaw, but Oregon had many blowdowns. There's also a pretty rough section in the Glacier Peaks Wilderness area in Washington. The good news is once you get into shape, blowdowns become a bit easier to handle. They can become annoying, and if you slip on one, they can be very dangerous. I can just imagine all of the opportunities to impale yourself. And if you encounter a trail crew that's clearing blowdowns, make sure you thank them. Okay, downside number 9, hikers with colorful language. In addition to loud hikers at night, you might have to get used to some Neanderthal language. I have never heard so many F words used in so many different parts of speech as I did during one night at Kennedy Meadows South. The backpacker used the F word as a noun, adverb, verb, and even gerund. It was impressive. However, again, it would be best if you followed the golden rule. What if there was a family with little kids along the trail? My thought is the trail can be a transforming experience, and the quicker we shed our baser selves, the better. Okay, downside number 10, trail moochers. Hiker boxes are very cool things along the trail. Basically, they're a box of hiker gear and food that people contribute to because they don't either want to carry the extra weight or their tastes have changed. I've seen a lot of interesting stuff in a hiker box. Ramen noodles, tuna packets, noodle surprises, etc. In my upcoming part 2 of my documentary, A Pacific Crest Trail Cottywomple, I have a section devoted to hiker boxes and some of the strange things people have discovered in them. The trouble is, some hikers use hiker boxes for their entire resupply strategy and plunder the boxes, leaving nothing for others. I actually saw 3 hikers at Shelter Cove in Oregon block others from viewing the contents this summer. A short time before this, at the Big Lake Youth Camp, we met an older hiker who, as we were opening our resupply boxes, complained his resupply box wasn't delivered. We felt sorry for him and outfitted him for the section ahead. Well, when we came across him at the next location, he said the same thing happened. And we also watched him convince a hiker to depart with some quarters so he could do his laundry. Was this all just a stroke of bad luck? Was he the victim of some Postal Service conspiracy to keep him off the trail? So some of the situations I have discussed here might not be seen by others as negatives. Some of the natural hazards, such as blowdowns and burn areas, can't be avoided. But some of the human-sourced problems are also inevitable given the mix of people and experiences you might have on the trail. Nothing I talked about should ever dissuade someone from hiking the trail. I believe all the positives, the kind people you meet along the way, the generosity of trail angels, and the opportunity to experience some stunning country and the ability to recover or improve your mental and physical health outweigh all the negatives. Just remember, humans will be humans no matter where you go. I think all the examples of bad human behavior could be solved if more of us just practice the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, that wraps it up. I forgot to talk about the psycho chipmunks and rodents. I wonder what rhymes with rodent. Well, until we meet again, live wildly, my friends.